Welcome back to my Dragonlands list. In this video we will cover the bottom 5 or the worst additions to Dragonlands. This is just the stuff that, made me really uncomfortable, the stuff I'm super worried about, or that, when I was doing the playtesting that kind of felt very frustrating. And again, none of this is in any particular order, so let's just get right into it. Probably the very first thing that came up when I was making this list, and this answer might surprise you, it's dragons. I don't like the dragons. I think that they are not working and I'm pretty worried about them. Let me explain what I mean. Honestly, it starts off visually. We have green Galio and blue Galio. One of them is a tank and the other one is supposed to be a backline caster, but both of them are a Galio, and that honestly really put me off. And then you have the golden Shyvana, the black Shyvana, the normal Shyvana. I think it's kind of lame. I just have to say this. It is pretty lame to have the same champion model recolored and then, give them a name. You don't really have any association with this name. It's weird. I don't think the abilities of the dragons is a problem, for the most part at least. I think that it's kind of weird. And then you also have them, when they show up in your shop, they just glow like crazy. Every time I was trying to do a roll down, I'm looking for the animation, showcasing, this is a pair, or this is a unit I already have, and I just couldn't focus on it because every single time all of these dragons were popping up and they were just visually overtaking my entire shop, and it was just I got really frustrated with it. I don't know, I just ended up not really enjoying any of the dragons. Either, you have to be super specific with your item build, so if you don't really understand perfectly which items you have to put on each specific dragon, then he is going to feel completely useless. And then if you have the perfect item build, then he is going to be completely overpowered. So I think there's going to be a large knowledge gap on how to utilize the dragons, and I don't think this is that healthy. So yeah, this was pretty much my my rant about dragons. I might change my mind on this. Overall, this is just first impressions. I just played a few days, not a few months with these dragons. But, I have this slight suspicion in the back of my head that I'm not going to enjoy playing dragons all that much. Since I already covered a lot about being annoyed about the visuals of the dragons, let's talk about the next topic, which is visual clarity. Oh my god. We had some issues with visual clarity in previous sets, especially set 4 was a pretty large offender. There's so many visuals going on, the Dragon Soul, the Samira Ultimate in set 4-5, you barely had any idea what was going on. And this was kind of frustrating because if you have barely any idea of what's going on, then it's really hard to make decisions in the game on what you should be doing different, especially if you're not an expert, especially if you're more of a casual player who doesn't really remember every single ability and every single interaction that the champions are doing to each other. Obviously, this is partly because I didn't know most of the champions and abilities, but I constantly felt very overwhelmed with the visuals. I thought that the fights looked very clustered, overloaded with effects. It was very hard to follow what was going on. Everything was just glowing left and right, and super large abilities stacked on top of each other. And I'm not that big of a fan of these types of animations. Initially, I really liked League of Legends because I thought it was super clean. And also when I initially tried Legends of Runeterra, I felt it was a huge visual overload. So I was always happy in TFT when things were going a little bit slower and it was everything was very clear to follow. And with Dragonlands, I really feel they missed the mark here. I think that the visual clarity is a complete mess, and I'm not looking that forward to trying to decipher what happened in my fights and make adjustments. Next up, we have balance. And yes, I am aware, the playtest and the first state of the PBE, nothing is balanced. This is usually the state of the game that is the most unbalanced. Units, abilities, everything is just overtuned, and it's going to take a lot of patching and fine-tuning to get this right. But I'm not that worried about the numbers. I'm honestly worried about specific abilities. I think Bard, even though he technically made my top 5 list, I'm really scared of Bard. I think getting a Bard on 7 is going to cause so much spam pinging, and right now I don't really know how to fix Bard. If they want to maintain that he increases the shop odds, then I don't know how to fix this. Sure, they can, remove the whole part about his allies also having a chance of dropping those nodes and this type of stuff, but man, that mechanic is dangerous. But that was enough of rant. Let's go to number 4, which is Yasuo. man, I don't like this champion. This is going to be one of my most hated legendaries. He's super, super strong, but that isn't really the problem. My main issue is that Riot always loves including champions that are able to remove super tanks. I mean, we had Team with a Cruel trait, but that was kind of fun because it had to be a 1v1. You had Viego, who was pretty frustrating to deal with. You had Lee Sin, who was extremely frustrating to deal with. And you had stuff like Urgot. You know, these type of killing Exodia tanks, these types of champions historically, they've been on the very, very frustrating spectrum. And Yasuo is pretty much that type of unit. Yasuo has currently in his passive that if the opponent only has a single unit left, then he's just going to deal an infinite amount of true damage and kill that unit. And I think that is unbelievably lame. I love these types of building up a super tank slowly. You know, I call this death by spoon. You know, it's like these redeemed Leona 3-star with Shadow Titans and just watch very, very slowly how the fight develops. I love these types of comps. I love building these types of super tanks, you know, having a really long fight, watching the opponent's team struggle. And none of this is possible because all the people have to do is just put in a Yasuo monster, 0 items. He's going to deal an infinite amount of true damage as long as the rest of my team is dead. And I think that the fact that there's no condition. Teemo at least had the condition with the 1v1. Yasuo doesn't have this condition. His entire team can be alive, and he's just going to one-shot your, super unit. I think this is incredibly lame. I honestly hope they remove this mechanic. I think this mechanic sucks so much. I hope they remove it. I don't want to have this in my game. I mean, I'm fine with them having an anti-Exodia mechanic, but this current form of Yasuo, I hate it, and I'm not looking forward to it. And at the end of my list, we have 3 costs. I'm talking about pretty much every single 3-cost unit in the game. You have stuff like Elise, which is probably the worst 3-cost printed ever. This champion literally feels like a 1-cost. I'm not even joking. Like, this is, I have no clue what Riot was thinking with that. Even if they buff her, I think her design, her animations are terrible. Then you have champions like, I don't know, Volibear and Anivia, and I mean, they're fine, but when I was like playing them, they didn't really feel that exciting. And then you also have stuff like Diana. It's like Diana is pretty much a reprint of the set 4 Diana with the whole orbs, except instead of being a 1-cost, she's a 3-cost. And this design was so problematic because, I mean, there's only 2 things that can happen. You build Infinity Edge Gunblade Titans, she's going to be overpowered as a 2-star, and it's going to be extremely frustrating having to deal with tank assassins, or she's going to be useless, and then assassins doesn't have anything in the middle, and this is going to feel super frustrating. I should probably also mention something like Olaf. Olaf feels weird. This guy, he gets stronger when he dies, which is something I call planning for failure, which is one of my least favorite mechanics. And to give you any idea what this kind of like reminded me of, it was stuff like repeating crossbow or the Darkstar from set 3. It was just terrible, and it just ended up never working because why would you want your units to die to become stronger? And then you also have his ability, which is, kind of a long animation, doesn't really feel like it's doing anything, and he'd probably be... Olaf legit probably would be strong if you just remove his ability. Just give him... If he would have a passive that only gives him a bit of attack speed, I think this champion would literally be stronger. Yeah, so to sum up, I'm very unhappy with the tier 3 pool. Again, first impressions, haven't played that many games, but I don't like the design of the tier 3 units. I think they did a pretty good job on the other ones. I think they did really well on the Origins and Straits. I think this is where this set really shines. But unit-wise, I think that we pretty much we are going to have a very large hole with probably the entire itemization going towards the dragons. So I'm a little bit worried that we're going to end up in this whole, get specific dragon to 2-star and then just face roll over everybody because people can't deal with it anymore. That we're going to end in this type of meta, which isn't really my favorite playstyle. So yeah, this is why I'm a little bit worried about it. But yeah, this was me ranting for a while. I think I'm going to call it quits here. Let me know in the comments what you think is the stuff that worries you the most, or the one where you think, right, missed the mark. And yeah, I hope you learned something, and see you the next time.